Well, hey everybody, I'm Nick Pettit. My Twitter handle is @NickRP, and I'm a web design teacher here at Treehouse, which of course is the best way to learn web design, web development, mobile business, and so much more. You can check us out at teamtreehouse.com, which I have right here up on my screen. And we have a brand new site design today. It's pretty awesome, so be sure to check that out. We have a brand new homepage here. It looks absolutely lovely. I'm really happy with the work that the dev and the design teams did on this. It's super awesome. If you click over here on the library and you're actually logged into Treehouse, you can see that it looks pretty different from the way it used to look before. Actually, I'm not going to go home because I'm not logged in, but on the library here, you can go ahead and filter by topic, you can filter by content type, and we have all sorts of new stuff in there. So be sure to check that out if you haven't done so already. So today we are going to be doing a little bit of wireframing. Actually, we're going to be doing mockups, with wireframing being one type of mockup that we're going to take a look at. We're going to do wireframes, high fidelity mockups in Photoshop, and we're also going to mock up a couple of things in code, and to do that I'm going to be using Bootstrap, which we've talked about on a previous edition of this live stream. So I'm going to hop into this app here called Balsamic Mockups. It is a paid app, but I believe they have a free trial, or you can try it out, for like 7 or 14 days or something like that. But check it out. You can also just use pen and paper. In fact, that's what I actually prefer to do. But just for the purposes of this live stream today, I'm going to use Balsamic Mockups so that you can see what I'm doing. Now, usually when I'm creating a website, I would list out some goals for the site, some elements that I might want to see on the various pages, and then I'd maybe break those up into different pages, into kind of a site map, depending on the complexity of the site. But we're not going to do that. We're just going to pretend that we're building a website that's going to be for a to-do list app. Now, a to-do list is kind of the classic example of a website that you make, or a web app that you make when you're introducing new concepts. But we're actually going to be making a marketing site for a to-do list. Now, this could go horribly wrong. We'll see how it works out. I haven't prepped for this at all, so we're gonna just see where it goes. So when I design stuff, I like to design from the inside out, and I like to worry about the Chrome and the navigation and the headers and all that stuff later. So first, I know that I need some kind of big title here, and I'm just going to drag something out in Balsamic Mockups. And I'm going to say the only to-do list app you'll ever need. So we'll put that text there, and I think that's a pretty good size. Let's see if I can break this down to the next line here. Can I do that? Or do I actually need to have paragraph text? I think I need to have paragraph text, so let me do that instead. Okay, cool. And I'm going to adjust the font size here so that it looks more like a headline, something that you would really want to pay attention to. I'm actually going to make that even bigger. There we go. Cool stuff. And over here, we might want to have some kind of image or maybe a video of what this to-do list app will actually look like. I actually would prefer to put a video here, but for the purposes of our example, we're just going to go ahead and maybe put like a screenshot of the app. So let's say that this is actually a mobile app. So it's a mobile app for your phone, and we're going to have this iPhone menu here. And we don't actually have an example of what this to-do list app looks like, but we'll just go ahead and kind of mock this up. So this is what a check mark looks like. And we have a label. So we'll say my to-dos. There we go. And let's just copy a couple of check marks to see what this ends up looking like. Okay, that's not too bad. We'll go ahead and put that in here. Now, again, this is just a wireframe, so it's going to be pretty simple. We don't need a whole lot of detail here. We just kind of need to get the point across and basically lay out the major shapes that are going to be on the page. So over here, I'll have this, this large iPhone or this screenshot of the app, basically. I wonder if I can rotate this. It doesn't quite look like it. That's okay. And over here, we have our headline. Now, just below that, I think I want to put some additional text, or maybe a call to action button that kind of says, where you can go ahead and get this app. So let's do that call to action button first, because I think that's more important. So we'll say, find it in the App Store, or maybe visit the App Store. So we'll increase the font size on that a little bit. How about find us in the App Store? No, that's still too much text for a button. Yeah, I'm just going to say visit the App Store. That's good enough. Okay, I'm going to increase the size of this button. Now you'll notice when I'm doing this wireframe, I'm not using any color. And that's very intentional because, again, when you are creating wireframes, you just want to lay out the shapes on the page. You want to get the composition right. And that's what we're really focusing on here. When we jump into Photoshop, we'll maybe do a little bit more of a high fidelity mock-up here that's based on this layout. Okay, I think this actually looks good for kind of just a big attention-grabbing headline. There's a screenshot of the app. You can kind of see what it looks like. There's a pretty bold statement here, both literally and figuratively. And then there's a call to action button. Now below that, further down the page, I would probably want a little bit more information about maybe the features of the app. So they're starting to get sold on this app. They scroll down the page. They want to learn more information. So in fact, we do something pretty similar on the Treehouse homepage. So if we scroll down here, there's a big call to action button, and then there's more information about the features. This is a very common way to do things. So I'm going to do something similar, not quite as robust as this, but we'll go ahead and just lay out maybe 3 features of this to-do list app. So let's see. Can I find that under media? Yeah. So there's these nice little pre-made icons in Balsamiq Mockups. I love using these. It just has a bunch of really simple icons for, really simple stuff. So let's see. What would the features of this app be? Well, there's a check mark. That's probably good enough, at least to just take up space in the composition. So, oops, that's too small. Sorry, I'm adjusting the size here. Okay, so we'll put that check mark there. And that actually is too small. I'd like that to be a little larger. There we go. So I'll make some room down here. So there's our check mark, and I'm going to duplicate that. And you'll notice Balsamiq has these nice little guides that are kind of like smart guides in Illustrator. If you're familiar with Illustrator at all, these little guides come up and can help you align stuff more easily. That's really nice when you're trying to just build a mock-up very quickly. So there's a check mark. Maybe there's something about dates in this to-do list app. So we'll put a clock. And then let's duplicate that one more time. And let's see here. Maybe you can share your to-dos with other people. So maybe we can put some sort of sharing icon here. So there's a picture of a person. There's a picture of multiple people. I just don't like that icon in particular. So we'll go ahead and use this one here. So I'm going to select all these and make sure it's kind of centered in this layout. And then we're going to add some text below each one. And I want to add maybe like a headline. Oops, there's my text. Let's see. So there's a subtitle. We'll say, get stuff done. Actually, we'll say, get her done. There we go. And then under here, we'll say, make dates, and then share stuff. And again, we're just laying out the major elements on the page. We don't have to get the copywriting perfect at this point. That's something that you can actually tweak up until the last minute and is very cheap to change. What's expensive to change is the layout of the page and the major page elements. So you want to make sure that you get those right up front in this wireframing stage where it's really easy to change those larger elements. So let's go ahead and add a bit of paragraph text here. And normally at this point, I would go ahead and type out a little bit more about each one of these features. I'm actually going to move these apart a little bit more. But I'm not going to do that today, just in the interest of time. I'm actually just going to go ahead and use what's called some lorem ipsum text. So let's just go ahead and type lorem ipsum. And there's all sorts of lorem ipsum generators out there on the internet. You can use whatever one you want. They all pretty much work the same. And I'm just going to copy some lorem ipsum text here, and this is just placeholder text. It doesn't actually mean anything, and that's the intention of it. You don't want it to be read, you just want it to take up space in the composition. So that's a little much for the lorem ipsum text. Let me align this a little better. Let's see, there we go. That's a little more text than we need, so let's just cut this down. That's still a little bit too much. Okay, there we go. I think that's good. And I think I'm going to align that center. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, I'm going to duplicate this a few times so that we have text under each one of these, and I'm just going to kind of add a little bit of variation to each one. So, let's see. I'll just swap a few things here. Okay. There we go. And that'll give us some sort of an idea of what different bodies of text might look like there. I'm actually going to delete a little bit more here. Cool. So there we have our basic page. I'm going to zoom out so we can see what's going on here. There's a few more things design-wise that I might want to do here. I might actually want to cut this off. So I'm just using a little text element here. But I might actually want to cut off this, this iPhone and bring these elements up. So that's the kind of detail that I might add in Photoshop, though. Let me bring those elements to the front. There we go. Cool. So that doesn't look too bad. A real good test, and I love that Balsamic Mockups has this, to see whether or not this looks like a real website. That's a technical term, by the way. No, it's not. I'm just kidding. Good test is to go ahead and add a browser window and just see if you can go ahead and place all of these elements inside of kind of a mock browser window here and see if it still looks good. So let's move these down. There we go. And I'll bring this in, kind of crop this up here. Okay. So I think that looks good. I think we have our mock-up here. Just zoom back in. Can I get a little more screen real estate? No, not quite. I'll zoom out so we can see it. I'm pretty happy with that mock-up. There's obviously more that we could do with this. We, probably would need to put some sort of navigation up at the top here. We might need to put in a logo. Let's actually just go ahead and add some placeholder text there just so we know. So we'll say to-do app, and that would be the title of the to-do app, and we'll make that a little bit smaller. But I think that's good. So at this point, we have the composition. We know where all the major page elements are going to go. And if we feel really confident about this vision for our website, we could go ahead and just jump straight into code. And in fact, that is, a perfectly legitimate route to take. You don't always have to do a high fidelity mock-up in Photoshop, and you don't have to know exactly what your website is going to look like before you start coding. It helps in some instances, whereas in other instances, it can just be kind of a waste of time. If you really have a clear vision for the site and you make your quick wireframe and you think, wow, like I know exactly how I'm going to do that in Bootstrap, then go ahead and go for it. The thing that you want to keep in mind with high fidelity mockups is that you only want to use them when you need to fill in really key details that might affect other parts of the site. So for example, if you're working with a pre-established brand and you're building them a brand new website and you have to stick to a particular color palette, then maybe you have a couple of elements that are laid out next to one another that once they're put in color might not have the same contrast that you envisioned in your mind's eye. And that can be a real problem to the point where you actually have to change the composition of the website. And at that point, you would have to go back to your wireframes and say, okay, what can we change in this composition to make these colors work together? And that's just one very specific example. But let's go ahead and jump into Photoshop. We'll talk a little bit more about that stuff. I'm going to save this out as a new mockup. So I'll save this to my desktop with the very uncreative title Mockup. And I'm also going to save a PNG image, and that was saved to my desktop. Cool. And I'll go ahead and open that up. Oops. Let's see here. There we go. Photoshop is being a little slow for some reason. There we go. Cool. Okay, so there's the mock-up for my site. I got a little extra white space here, I think because those paragraphs were a bit too tall. And I'm just going to keep this in here for my own reference. I'm not going to, you know, use this for any other reason. I'm just going to keep it kind of on the side here so that I know what I'm working towards. So let's go ahead and create a new mockup here. And I'm going to create this at, let's say, 2800 by 1800, because that is the resolution of the Retina display that I'm using. It might be at a slightly different resolution because it is plugged in so that you guys can see it, but we'll just go with that. It shouldn't affect the outcome here. So I'm going to draw out a few guides here. And one thing I should point out at this point is that you can definitely do this type of thing in another program like Illustrator, for example. Need to actually change a preference here. I think it's showing me inches when I want to actually see. Oh, no, it's showing me points. That's weird. Yeah, I'd much rather see pixels. There we go, rulers. Okay, awesome. But anyway, yeah, you could go ahead and do this in Illustrator if that's a program that you feel more comfortable in. But I just enjoy using Photoshop. I've been using it for years, and I'm a little bit more efficient there. So first, we need an image of an iPhone here. So let's go ahead and grab that imagery up front. I'm going to go to apple.com. I think if I just type press, let's see. Hey, there's some Apple presses on Amazon. It's lovely. PR info. If I go to product images here, I should be able to grab an image that's fairly high resolution of the new iPhone. So I'll go ahead and download the gold iPhone there, because we know that one's the best. And it's downloading in a zip. And there we go. I have my image of my iPhone. So I'm going to go ahead and drag that into Photoshop. Oops. There we go. And I'll just crop off what I need here. Cool. I'm going to trim this so I can trim out the, oops, actually, that's the back of the iPhone. Excuse me. There we go. I'm going to trim this. Cool. And now I can just go ahead and drag this into my my document here. All right. I'm going to convert this to a smart object in case I need to actually edit it later on. And I'll just keep it right there for now. Okay. I'm going to save this document before I get too much further, again, using the very creative title mockup.psd. And now I want to go ahead and start adding in some of this text. So I'll go ahead and type in, gosh, what did I say here? The only to-do list app you'll ever need. Okay, let's try that again. The only to-do list app you'll ever need. Now, as you may have noticed, that text is very, very tiny. So let's go ahead and fix that. I want this text to be much larger. There we go. Actually, I want it even larger than that. Let's do like 200 points. Let's see how big that is. That's a little huge. Maybe 150. 120 or maybe like 100. Yeah, that's a little better. Okay. And I had the line break at the word you'll ever need. Okay. All right. So there's our text. And one of the major elements here is this block down at the bottom where the phone is getting cut off. So I'm going to add that in now just so I can place some of the other elements appropriately. So to do that, I'm just going to create a shape here. using the rectangle tool. And we'll just do something like that. And this is where, you can start making those more detailed decisions about color. So presumably there would be some sort of color scheme for this app, and maybe that's already decided. Maybe this is the phase that you're deciding it. You would want to spend a lot of time on your colors, but for now I'm just going to go ahead and just pick this nice blue color. I think that'll look good. What is this? It keeps coming up. I just hit Command H to hide my guides. Oh, okay. It's asking me if I want to hide extras or guides. Okay, there we go. This is a new user account, so there's a couple things that are still fresh here. All right, so we have our iPhone. Let's do the responsible thing and label our layers here. I'm going to call this overlay. Let's adjust this a little bit so that the right things are showing. I want this to be in the correct place. Want some white space at the top just to kind of give this page a little bit more of a dramatic look. And one thing I didn't do that I actually should have done at the beginning is draw out some guides on the left and right sides here so I kind of know the bounds of the page. I'm going to do that at 1280 here. So let's see if I can do that. There's probably a lot of people yelling at me about how to place guides more accurately. I know. But there we go. Okay. Cool. So let's place a guide there. And place a guide there. Okie dokie. We'll zoom back out here. Just to give you an idea of the resolution that we're working at here, this is actually full res. So this is a fairly high resolution document that I'm working with here. And again, that's for Retina displays. It's just so that I can get an idea of what the site should look like at full res. So after adding those guys, I can see that these page elements are still a little bit large. For this image on the left here, or excuse me, on the right, we could get away with it actually being cut off of kind of this safe area here. Maybe we only want to show a small part of the to-do interface. But I'm actually going to adjust the size of that there. Let's see, show my transform controls. Because I actually don't think this should be cut off. So there we go. And now looking at this text is actually too large. So we need to make that that smaller. It looks like we actually might have been better off at the beginning there. Okay, cool. And we have a lot of white space at the top here. So let's bring all of these elements up. That's good. I'm going to hide my guides here just so I can see kind of what the composition looks like without those. And I think that's looking nice. I like where this is going. I'm going to take these things away from the edges of the page here. All right, cool. Now we need to add this button. So let's go ahead and throw that in there. To do that, I'm going to use my shape tool here, and I'm trying to decide if I want this to be a rectangle or if I actually want this to be a rounded rectangle. I think I'm going to go with rounded and just have very slight corners there. Now, actually, before I do that, I should type out the text that's going to be inside there. So let's first say visit the App Store. Okay. And I want to make that smaller. So maybe about there. That's good. And now I can go ahead and confidently draw that shape around it. And I'll use the spacebar here just to kind of adjust the positioning of it. Okay. And I've rearranged the layers here, but you can't see the text because it's actually the same color as the button. So we need to make a couple of adjustments. I want this text to be white so that it's higher contrast than some of the other page elements. And then I'm going to go ahead and make this rectangle maybe like a nice bright saturated color. So we could go with that same blue that we have down here, or we could go with just maybe some other color that makes this stand out. So maybe like a nice green color here that's at a similar level of saturation. So let's go ahead and do that. I think that looks good. And I want to make this look like more of a button. So I'm going to go ahead and add a slight drop shadow to this. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's see. Where did my drop shadows go? I haven't used drop shadows in so long. Ah, there we are. Okay. And that drop shadow looks pretty ugly. So let's go ahead and make it look better. I want this to be a normal blend mode. And I want the opacity to be 100%. I'm going to grab this same color here. And I'm just going to bring down the color a little bit there. Cool. All right. Well, I think that looks nice. Let's look at our guides again just to see where everything is at. I still think we have too much white space at the top now. So let's move everything up. Okay. Cool. So that's kind of what our composition is looking like right now. That overlay could stand to come up a little more too. Okay. And now we're ready to design those features. So these three things that go down at the bottom, just below the iPhone and the call to action button. So we want a check mark, a clock, and a person. Let's just see if Photoshop has those actually built in. Normally, you'd want to design your own iconography here, but in the interest of time, we are going to take a couple little shortcuts here. So let's see what shapes we have. Well, we got a check mark. Looks like I don't have a whole lot of other shapes here, so we may have to actually get a little creative. That's okay. I'll use this check mark here. And I want to color this white so it stands out against that blue background. And then I'm going to go ahead and design the rest of this this element here, and then we'll copy that 2 times and make the rest of them. So let's add the text, and the text, I think we said get or done. Yeah, okay. So get or done. All right. We're going to get stuff done with this to-do app. Cool. Going to increase the font size of that a bit. And then we'll add some paragraph text down here. And again, we're just going to use lorem ipsum text. And for that, I'm going to go to Balsamiq Mockups here and just copy the exact text that I had. This needs to be paragraph text. So let's see. I think that's in layer text. Is it? Oh boy. There's like a convert to paragraph text somewhere here. And type. Okay. Okay. And now we can go ahead and drag this out and actually adjust the bounds of this paragraph. So that looks okay. We'll continue adjusting this. We need to decrease the font size, certainly. Okay. I think that's starting to come together. Oops. Once again, this paragraph is a little bit too tall, so let's decrease the size of that there. Okay. Now, we need all of these elements to be lined up. This icon here, this title, and this paragraph text. So to do that, I'm just going to select all these elements, come up at the top here, and say Align Horizontal Centers. And then I can go ahead and group those elements. And I'll call this Feature 1. And we'll put that over here on the left side. And then I'm going to go ahead and duplicate each one of these. And oh, hey, look at that. We're already running into a little bit of a problem here. Our paragraphs are too wide. So that's why you want to go ahead, when you have elements like this that are very similar, you want to just create the first one, because then you can modify it and duplicate it. Because once you've created all three of them, you have to make those changes to all three elements. And in this case, all we need to do is just decrease the width of that paragraph a little bit. And if we were doing this in CSS, we'd actually be increasing the padding. I think that font size is still a little too large, so I'm actually going to bump it down a bit more. There we go. Let's do like 26. Cool. Okay. So now we can go ahead and duplicate this. So actually, one more thing I wanted to do here was move this down just a little bit. Does that look good? Yeah, that looks fine. Okay. Let's move that there. And let's move that here. Now, once again, we can go ahead and select all of these elements and space them appropriately. We'll come up here and say Distribute Horizontal Centers. And that will evenly distribute each one of these. And then we can, with all of them selected, just move it to the center line. And so now everything is centered. So now we just need to adjust the things that are different. So on these other two, we said make dates and share stuff. So we'll change this text here to make dates and share stuff. And actually, I wanted that text to be centered. So we need to select each one of those and center it. And that's going to throw things off. See, this is exactly why you want to just create the first one and then duplicate it. But that's okay. I can go ahead and fix this pretty quick. So let's do that. Do that. And do that. And then we just need to make sure that these are all lined up accordingly. Okay. There we go. That's the one I wanted. And then that one. And then this last one. Actually looks like they're already all lined up, but just makes me feel better doing that. Okay. So let's label all of these and adjust the things that are different. So this is feature number 2. Move that down. And this is feature number 3. We'll move that down. Yep, that's feature 3. So feature 3 is supposed to be share stuff. And like I said, in the interest of time, we're just going to just pick one of these icons and go with it. Normally, you'd want to design your own custom iconography here, or use something that's kosher and okay to use in terms of copyright. So we'll go ahead and adjust the text on that one. Oops, actually deleted the wrong one there. Here we go. Okay. Now, One thing that I should point out while I'm doing this is how much longer it actually takes to do something in Photoshop than it does to do something in a wireframe. You'll notice that I'm kind of struggling with the software here a little bit more than I would if I were just doing this as a very simple wireframe. It's more expensive to make changes the higher fidelity you go. So the detail here is greater, and that means that there's going to be more things to customize, more things that I need to make sure are colored correctly, more things that I need to line up, and all that good stuff. So there we have a nice high fidelity mockup. Again, there's a couple more things that I'd want to do to this if this were really going to go into production. I'd actually want to have a real screenshot of the app, not just the home screen of an iPhone. And I'd want to have my own iconography. And at this stage of design, I would probably spend a little bit more time on the copywriting. I'd want to make sure that I got the copywriting not perfect, but closer to what I would actually want it to be. So I'm trying to keep this workshop around an hour, and we're 40 minutes in. I've spent around 20 minutes or 10 minutes on my wireframe, and then the second third on this Photoshop document. And now I am going to go ahead and jump into some code. Now, we're probably not going to get quite as far as we did with Photoshop here, but we'll see what we can do. So I'm going to save this mockup, and just for the sake of comparison, let's go ahead and look at these two side by side and just kind of see where we ended up. That's not too bad. Hopefully this gives you an idea of what it can look like when you're making the leap from a wireframe to a higher fidelity mockup. A lot of things are going to change. The spacing on certain elements might change a little bit. That's perfectly okay. As long as you're not completely redesigning in a high fidelity mockup, you should be okay. So let's jump in the code. I'm going to go ahead and go to Bootstrap here. And if you're not familiar with Bootstrap, it's basically just a front-end framework. It's a collection of CSS and JavaScript with all sorts of useful components that can help you make your website faster. There's a couple of different ways to install it. You can download it, or you can use their CDN or Content Delivery Network to go ahead and just load it in off of someone else's servers. So that's lovely. I'm going to go ahead and do that. And in order to do that, though, I'm actually going to start out with one of their examples here. This example isn't terribly far off from what I want to try to accomplish. We don't need the carousel element here, but let me just click on this so you can kind of get an idea. They have these three images here, or these three columns laid out, and that's pretty similar to what I want to do. And they also have this this cutoff here, which is also not too far away from what I want to get done. So I'm going to start out with this example here. So let me just go ahead and view the source on this. And I'm going to grab all of the source code. And then I'm going to open up Sublime Text 2, which is a text editor. I'm just going to start a new document here. So I'll save this to my desktop once again. You shouldn't save everything to your desktop. You should have a real dev folder, but I'm just doing that for the sake of time today. And I'm going to open this up in the browser, but when I do, a lot of things are going to be broken. It's not loading up any of the CSS and JavaScript, but that's because we need to load it off of a CDN. So let's go ahead and grab those CDN links. This is for the CSS. So let me go ahead and get that first. Looks like the CSS is right here. And I need to add an HTTP :/ here because I'm not actually going to load this the way it's having it load in there. There we go. Cool. Okay. I'm not going to use any of this stuff, again, for the sake of time. We don't need the custom styles for the carousel because we're not going to use it. In fact, let's just go ahead and get rid of that carousel completely right now. So here's the carousel. Looks like that's where it starts anyway. Let's see, can I go ahead and collapse this? Hey, there we go. Okay. We're just going to get rid of that carousel completely. And I'm going to put a div there. I'm just going to say header goes here, and that's where we're going to put our iPhone and stuff like that. And then we have the rest of that marketing copy. So all of those features look like they come in later on. And then down here we have a couple of other CDN links that we need to copy in. So we're going to go ahead and copy Bootstrap. And we also need to get jQuery. So, I wonder if, nah, jQuery wouldn't be hosted off of that CDN. Let me go to HTML5 boilerplate, and let me just grab the link that they're using for jQuery. I can never remember it. Let's see here. jQuery. Where is it? There it is. Okay. This is being hosted by Google, so it should be pretty reliable. So same thing there. And I don't think we need this JavaScript file. It's going to 404 right now, but let's just refresh and see where we're at. Okay, cool. This is pretty much what I thought this was going to look like. We don't need all of these features down here because we're not going to use them. So let me go ahead and remove that. Let's see. End of the featurettes. Cool. Here's the start of the featurettes. Let's delete that. So far, so good. We're not going to bother with this footer for now. And we also don't need this header, or this navigation, I should say. Let's see how far we get with that. All right. Not too bad. Now, we need to go ahead and put in our styling. Now, I'm moving fairly quickly here, so I do apologize if this is a little bit confusing. We did a workshop on Bootstrap pretty recently, so you may want to dig into Treehouse and look up that workshop if you're not familiar with Bootstrap at all, because we talk about it quite a lot there. So, we need to do a couple of things here. Let me just switch back to Photoshop, kind of figure out what we need. So this marketing copy says the only to-do list app you'll ever need. I'm going to just copy that there and paste it into this div here. And this is going to be a container in Bootstrap. I'm going to create a first level headline that says the only to-do list app you'll ever need, and put a little line break there. Cool, there we go. And I want to create a button. Now, Bootstrap has some really great buttons already pre-made. So let me jump into their CSS here. And let me just grab, let's see, this default button. And let me see where that gets us. Okay, looks like we have a button here just as you'd expect. Now, I actually don't need those buttons below each one of those bits of marketing copy, so I'm going to remove those right now before I forget. Let's refresh the page and see what that looks like. Cool. You'll notice we have some broken images here. We'll fix those in just a moment here. But let's try to make this button look like our button in Photoshop. So I'm going to grab the colors that we used here. Oops. Going to select my eyedropper tool. Oh, I didn't want to do that. That's weird. I've never seen it do that before. Okay. And there is our hexadecimal value for this particular color. That's wonderful. I'm going to switch over here. And this is just kind of a quick mock-up. Normally I would do this in a separate style sheet, but I'm just going to open up a style element here and just kind of prototype this quickly. So the class here is button, but we want to add our own class. So we're going to call this call to action button. And we'll select that. Excuse me. And we want to change the background of that to that green color. So let's see, it'll be background. Oops, I don't have that copied anymore. Okay, there we go. Cool. Let's see if that got us there. Great. The color on that button should be white. I don't want any kind of border on it. The roundness actually looks good, so the rounded corners or the border radii looks just fine. I'd like the font to be bold. And then I want to add that drop shadow. So I'm going to say box shadow. And for the x coordinates, or the x offset, we'll say 0 pixels. For the y offset, we'll say about 3 pixels. I think that's about how large it was in our mock-up. The blur radius is going to be 0. We want this to be a nice sharp shadow, so we don't want it to be blurred at all. And then we need to set the color. So let me grab this color here, that slightly darker green color. And we'll put that there. Let's see what that looks like. Hey, look at that. It's starting to get pretty close here. I also want to change the hover state on that. So it's a minor detail. Hover. And let's see, what do I want the hover state for that to look like? I'm not really sure. We're going to omit that in this example. So we'll just style that exactly the same. Yeah, that's fine. And then the font size is still a little smaller. So we'll increase that to like 1.2 ems, actually 1.5. Cool. And then we need to change the actual text. It says, visit the App Store. And I'd actually like to remove that bolding there. I just wanted to increase the font size. Oops. Refresh there. Cool. All right, that looks good. That's close enough to what we were trying to accomplish. Now, we need to add in this this iPhone over here. I think the font size on this H1 is actually a little small, if you can believe that. I know it looks huge, but I want it to be a little larger even. So let's put a class on here. It says headline. And we'll say font size 2 ems. See how large that is. Nope, I guess it was already larger than that. That's a little too big. 3.5 maybe? That's not bad. I think 3.2 might get us there. Okay. And let me just remove that, see if that made it larger than it was. Yeah, it did. Okay. And I want to put a little bit of margin on the bottom, maybe like 20 pixels, just to give it some separation from that button. Let's do like 30. There we go. Okay. I'm going to change this to a header element because that's essentially what it is. And on this header, I'm going to add, let's see, some space here. So we'll say margin bottom, maybe like 100 pixels. Yeah, there we go. Actually, I want this to be padding because, well, how would that work? Because I'm thinking about how we're going to add this background image. But, all right, that looks fine. Now, let's go ahead and jump into our Photoshop mockup here. And this is where a high-fidelity mockup is really, really useful because I can just go ahead and grab this background image here and just drop it straight into my site. And that's going to save me a lot of time because if I hadn't created this high-fidelity mockup, I would have needed to create this imagery anyway. So that's pretty nice. So I'm just selecting this image here, and I'm going to go ahead and hide some of the layers that I don't need. So in this case, that would be all that stuff there. And I can actually get a little bit more optimized here. There's more image optimization I could be doing here. But we're not going to crop this in perfectly. We'll just get it good enough. Okay. And now I'm going to crop that out. And I'm going to save it for web. And let's see how bad a 24-bit ping would be. A little bit large for my taste. That file size is a bit high, but that's okay. This is a marketing splash page. We want this to look super awesome. So we're going to go ahead and go with that. So I'm going to save this as iPhone.png, and I'm just going to put it on my desktop because that's where my index.html file is. And let's set that as the background. So normally this would be, well, we want the background to be pure white, but we also want this image here. So let's say URL, and it's going to be iPhone.png, and we're going to set it, let's see, bottom right, and we don't want it to repeat, and that should get us there, I think. Wow, that's super huge. So let's say background size 50%, because remember, these are retina-sized images, and we don't need them that large. Oops, that doesn't look good. Here we go. Let me try making this even smaller here. Maybe I did my math wrong. If that's the case, I apologize. Yeah, because you know what? Let me back out of this here a little bit. Do a few undos. Oops. We actually need this to be the same height in the browser. So that's a height of 632 pixels. Let's just try setting an explicit height on our header. Let me go in here and just see how tall this is. 640 by, okay, 589. Sure, we'll say 589. So height 589 pixels, and I think some retina weirdness will occur here. Yeah, so we actually want it to be half that size. So 589 divided by 2, we'll round up, say 295. So the height should be 295, and then the background size is 50%. It's still not doing what I'm expecting it to do there. Oh, because it's 50% of the full width. Okay. Well, we will cheat a little bit here. We won't worry about that today. And just say that. Can I get that smaller? Yes, I can. That's too small. 40. There we go. Okay. Now I could position this a little bit more. So if I did something like this, it should position it from the left side. Oops. Man. Having trouble with positioning today. Okay, well, just gonna guesstimate here. That's fine. It says it's just a prototype. There we go. And now we need to move this text over here on the left down a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and put some padding up at the top here. Oh, you know what? That might have been the problem with the positioning, is that I had the padding there too. So let's say padding on the top and bottom will be 100 pixels, on the left and right will be none. I'll subtract 100 from the height, and that should get us there. We're getting pretty close here, and I'm actually going to leave it right there because I want to leave some time for Q&A here. We're just at exactly an hour. But if I were to continue here and be a little bit more precise with my my pixel measurements, you can kind of see how this would come together in the browser fairly quickly using just a little bit of code here. I mean, you can create websites pretty fast with Bootstrap, or at the very least, you can prototype them. So, wow. We have a whole bunch of questions in chat. That is wonderful. That's what I like to see. I love answering questions from guys. The first question I have here is from Kevin. And Kevin asks, how would you have done things differently if you rapid prototyped in the browser instead? How you rapid prototype today if you practice it. Okay. So, if I were to rapidly prototype in the browser, I would have to have a pretty clear vision of what it is that I'm trying to accomplish. And that's usually pretty rare. If you do think that you have just an absolutely clear vision of what you want your page to look like, then you should still at least spend like 5 or 10 minutes just doing a quick sketch on paper, just to make sure that it checks out. Because oftentimes what will happen is you'll end up discovering things that you really didn't think were going to be problems, but they end up becoming major issues. They end up becoming issues to the point where you actually need to adjust the composition completely. So the thing there is that you just always want to remember your mind is going to idealize things quite a lot. And as soon as you commit things to paper and make them real, that's when you start to see the problems that you didn't even know were there. So I do often rapidly prototype things in the browser, but not without doing some sort of quick thumbnail sketch first, just so I at least know where I'm going. I do skip Photoshop a lot. Like, if it's not going to be this really nice polished marketing page or something like that, I'll just jump straight into Bootstrap or whatever front-end framework I'm using that day and go for it. So, next question says, before doing your actual mock-up, where do you find inspiration for your design? Do you have any process you normally follow? Do you recommend doing mock-ups even if you're using Webflow or Macaw? Okay, so there's like 3 questions there. Inspiration for design? Oh my gosh, I mean, that's such a huge question. My inspiration just comes from all over the place. I look at a lot of art. I watch a ton of movies. I play a ton of video games. It's, it comes from everywhere. So that's a more difficult question to answer because even if I could talk about that for an entire hour, I still don't know if I'd be able to give you a very clear answer. Inspiration is a very fuzzy thing, and it can come from anywhere. So I think the thing there is just to always keep your eyes open. Do I have any process that I normally follow? Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'll normally do a couple of quick wireframes, and that's the most exciting part of the project because that's where your ideas kind of start to become real and you see what they would actually look like and feel like, and you can start to visualize them a little bit better than you can in your mind. So I will spend a lot of time wireframing unless I have a really clear idea of what I'm doing. Then I'll just do one quick wireframe and jump right into it. But after that, I will I will oftentimes just jump straight into the browser. I won't even do a Photoshop mockup. Now you can do these steps in any order that you want. This is not like some sort of de facto process that I'm teaching you that everybody else does. This is just what I like to do. And if you feel more comfortable getting into Bootstrap, maybe doing a rapid prototype, and then going into wireframes and going into Photoshop, you could totally do that. You can omit any of these steps. I mean, it's really up to you. It's whatever you feel most comfortable with and whatever you're going to be most efficient with. Now, do I recommend doing mockups even if using Macaw or Webflow? Yeah, I think so. I mean, I would still do some sort of wireframe, at least personally. I mean, if you feel comfortable not doing that, then, like I said, that's totally up to you. Next question says, what Photoshop shortcut are you using to move the layers around? That's a neat trick. Oh my gosh. So I've been using Photoshop for so long, I don't know if I can even verbalize what I'm doing when I'm moving layers around. I think it's like, it's just muscle memory at this point for me. I think it's like Command-Shift bracket will move things around. Is that doing stuff? Yeah, that's doing something, but I don't think that's quite what you're referring to. There's so many Photoshop shortcuts. We do have a really great Photoshop course on Treehouse, so if you're a Treehouse member, then you should definitely be sure to check that out. We talk about all sorts of shortcuts in that. Next question says, why were you working in a large Photoshop document instead of a canvas sized to the exact size of the browser? So I was actually working in this this pretty large Photoshop document, but that's for Retina displays. So this display that I'm working on is 2800 by 1800, I think. I'm like 90% sure on that. So it's a fairly high resolution display. So technically, it is actually the exact size of the browser window. Now, there's a big difference between actual pixels and what are called virtual pixels. So really, it's a little bit complex to explain, but if I drag out the width here of 1280, that's a little closer to what would actually end up in the browser. But yeah, I'm just using that large canvas because of Retina display, so I can save out these 2x images and use them appropriately, which I did not do today because I had that positioning stuff going on. But normally, yeah, I would make sure that I fix that if given more time. So next question says, does the Aesthetic Foundations course at Treehouse cover color saturation like you discussed earlier? So we actually have a brand new course at Treehouse called Design Foundations that you should check out. And Aesthetic Foundations is really good, but Design Foundations is kind of the next version of that, and you should definitely check that out. We talk about all sorts of stuff. I'm not sure if it gets into color saturation specifically, but I'm pretty sure it does. Chris Zabrisky's nodding his head at me here, so yes. So next question says, would you call yourself a designer or a developer? I self-identify as a web designer, but that doesn't mean, I don't know how to do any kind of development. I've written plenty of JavaScript. I've made plenty of Rails apps on my own. I've done lots of PHP coding. That's actually where I got my start in web stuff. I wanted to do web design, but I didn't have anybody at the time that I knew that I could work with. This was before I had met anybody else in the web industry. So out of necessity, I learned PHP because I wanted to make cool websites, and I knew that I needed some sort of back end to communicate with a database and all that sort of stuff. So I'm a little bit of both, but I feel like, I self-identify more as a designer personally. Next question says, do you normally use a MacBook when working on projects, or do you recommend a multi-monitor setup for designers and devs? I don't think that really matters a whole lot. It's, again, whatever you're most efficient with, whatever you feel most comfortable with. I actually don't use a multi-monitor setup. I used to for many, many years. But I just really like these new Retina displays that Apple's been putting out, or these higher resolution displays, and I've been working almost exclusively on that without hooking up to an external monitor at all. That's just personal preference, though, and it shouldn't really affect your design work a whole lot. Next question says, should you use pixels as a unit of measurement when choosing a font size in CSS? That is such a good question. It used to be the case that, yeah, a lot of people would use pixels, which are what are called a fixed unit of measurement, to set their font sizes. But nowadays, best practice is to use a unit called ems, which is EM. You saw that in my code a little bit there. So I set a font size of 3.2 ems or 1.5 ems. And as opposed to a fixed unit of measurement, that is a relative unit of measurement. So this is actually setting it based on a base size of 1 em. And an em, it's kind of a funky unit of measurement to explain. There might be a more specific definition, but it has something to do with like the height of the letter M. So that's why it's called ems. EM doesn't actually stand for anything, at least I don't think. Maybe someone can correct me on that. But yeah, that's a much better way to set your font sizes. You don't want to use pixels, at least unless you have a really specific reason as to why you're doing that. You almost always want to set a relative font size because it's way easier to maintain, and it's way easier to adjust your base size and adjust all of your font sizes relatively to one another. So the last question in the chat today is, how is Jim doing? If you're not familiar, Jim is another one of our teachers at Treehouse. He's actually recently switched over to the development team, so he's not doing any teaching of his own these days. He's actually working on the Treehouse app and a couple of other cool things that we have in store. But Jim's doing great. He's doing awesome. He just came back. I think it was from Oslo, if I'm not mistaken. He took a pretty extended trip there. I think he was doing a talk out there and then took a little bit of vacation there. He's grown this awesome red beard. It's pretty amazing. But yeah, no, Jim is doing great. I'm glad somebody asked that. Well, that's all we have time for today. If I didn't get to your question, I'm really, really sorry. If you do have questions for me that I didn't get to, you can go ahead and tweet to me. I am at NickRP on Twitter. Again, my name is Nick Pettit, and I'm a web design teacher here at Treehouse, which of course is the best way to learn web design, web development, and so much more. You can check us out at teamtreehouse.com. We do these live streams every week on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. So be sure to tune in at the same time, same place next week. And I'll see you real soon. Thanks for watching.